Hey, this is Daniel Dae Kim, and you're listening to the official Lost podcast hosted by ABC.com.
Welcome to the last podcast for Season 2, minus the special post-finale wrap-up next week. So I guess this isn't our final podcast, but it is our final finale podcast, before the finale airs, that is. The final one will be next week, finally. Anyway, this podcast, we sit down with one of people's sexiest men alive, Daniel Dae Kim, and learn about yet another prank that was pulled on set recently. This one involving rocks. Later, executive producers Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse will join us to discuss the upcoming 2-hour season finale, Live Together, Die Alone, which airs Wednesday, May 24th from 9 to 11 p.m. on ABC.
결제해놔야지. 안내 뭐 넣지 말고 결제해놔야 돼.
Oh, no, it's not for fish.
아니요.
No. Oysters. Oyster. Pearl. For Rose. Pearl.
시간 낭비하지 마세요. No oyster. No oyster here.
At the beginning of our podcast series, we first heard from Daniel Dae Kim about the rigors of filming last season's finale. So we thought it only appropriate to revisit him since we're at the end of another season. Of course, in that time, Daniel has been catapulted to fame, being first recognized with an AZN award and, more importantly, being recognized by People magazine and soon TV Guide as being one of America's sexiest men alive.
It's never been a career goal or anything like that, but I have to say I'm very flattered by it. Traditionally Asian American men aren't really considered to be sexy. They're, you have stereotypes from, the nerdy, geeky kid with glasses and, or the harsh businessman, but their sexuality isn't generally addressed in that way. It was a big surprise and a real big honor, and I hope I'm just one in a long line of Asian men and women who are seen that way from here on in.
Much like Naveen Andrews and Yeonjun Kim, Daniel agrees that Lost has broken new ground by featuring principal actors that speak different languages.
그냥 혼자서 당신이 괜찮다면
그럼 그렇게 해. 바닷가에서 보자.
사랑해.
The translation isn't exactly what you read on the screen a lot of times, not because the actors and the translator are trying to change up the writing, but I think the challenge is whenever you're trying to literally translate from one language to another, sometimes you lose the conversational quality of what the dialogue is trying to communicate. So what the translators and Yoonjin and I try and do is take the essence of what's being said in English and try and put it not only in a literal translation, but also make it colloquial enough that it would be conversational. So sometimes there are slight variations, but most of the time they're not noticeable and they communicate what's actually trying to be said by the writers.
Translations aside, this being the last episode of the season, we asked Daniel to speculate on what's going to happen.
I think the tone that was set at the beginning of the season about a battle between good and evil is probably the way it's going to continue to go. I think the season's probably going to culminate with some kind of physical confrontation or something. It's got to come to a head in some way, and I can't think of a better place for that to happen than in the finale.
Of course, the last episode of the season can only mean one thing: more pranks. Thus far, we've heard about corpsing and birthdaying. This week, we add good old physical labor to the list.
Well, actually, yeah, I was on set the other day, my last day of shooting, and I was shooting a scene with Sam Anderson, who plays Bernard on the show. And we, without giving too much away, we were piling rocks up on the beach somewhere. And on the last take of the day, I think it was Michael Bonvillain and the director, Eric Lonneville, had the idea that we were just going to leave Sam hanging there without saying cut while he was piling rocks. So what ended up happening was I had exited the scene, and that was technically where the scene was supposed to have been cut, but the director never yelled cut, and so Sam was piling rocks literally for 15, 20 minutes by himself. The entire cast and crew had left the beach, and we were now in the woods just watching to see whether he would just stop piling or run away or what he would do. But Sam, consummate professional that he is, just kept piling rocks until we couldn't take it anymore, and we busted out laughing and
dedicated to his craft.
Exactly, and he finally yelled cut. Hopefully that makes the blooper reel this year, because that was classic.
And speaking of people slaving away at seemingly meaningless tasks, we now turn it over to executive producers Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, who hopefully will have more luck getting their message across than poor Bernard.
Hello, Carlton.
I
almost got ahead of you there. Okay, ready? Let's try it again. Hello,
morning.
Carlton, and welcome to our fabulous. Not quite.
Penultimate podcast.
This is the penultimate podcast
for season 2.
How will people go an entire summer without podcasts?
Without us? Oh my God! We're going to improving mental health everywhere.
We
no
should start.
podcasts.
We should start doing podcasts for like Dancing with the Stars or something else. See
I
if they're
think
interested
exactly.
in-
Chris, do you think that that we can do like some podcasts about
other ABC original shows?
exactly.
Over
Like-
If we get footage of you guys dancing.
Freddie?
You can
How
get
about some
footage of us
Freddie
dancing.
Freddie podcast?
Carlton's dancing. Wow, Carlton's dancing right now. Holy!
I've
he's
got happy feet.
Carlton's got out some cardboard and he's doing a head spin. Wow, go Carlton, go! How do you have so much energy? That's phenomenal.
Well, it's early in the day.
Alrighty, wow. Well, I don't.
All right.
That's a hell of a segue to talk about 3 minutes.
Exactly. So what do you think the most important thing coming out of 3 minutes is that the audience needs to be aware of?
I think that there was a lot to sort of digest in that episode. Obviously, first and foremost, it feels like we had this big, long, sort of protracted experience with the others, and it was kind of cool to see sort of Michael's journey as it aligned back with the hunting party when he ran off, and seeing both sides of that coin. But it feels like there are a couple of new characters that we met. Ms. Clue,
right,
whose name is actually, for edification purposes, spelled Klugh.
Right.
This other guy, Pickett, who she refers to.
Right.
We still don't know the name of the guy with the beard at
Right.
this point. We refer to him
as
internally
Mr.
as
Friendly.
Mr. Friendly because he's so friendly. But,
Right.
But the idea that they've now given Michael this list with Hurley's name on it, and Sawyer and Kate and Jack, and have told him to bring them across the island for reasons that we don't know, is fairly
Right.
intriguing.
And we saw Walt.
We did.
Which was great. I mean, especially after all this entire season, we've seen him in some apparitions, or perhaps they were genuine appearances, but we've seen him very limited.
Well, it is odd, though, that Ms. Clue asked Michael, has he ever been in a place that he wasn't supposed to be? One
Exactly.
might make certain deductions based on that question.
There might be some subtext that the others are a little freaked out by by Walt.
And Michael.
And Michael, too, especially since, Pickett takes his blood.
Yeah, that's true. What the hell are the others doing? Who are they? What's going on?
Oh, my God. It was cool, though, to go through Yurtville.
Yeah, that which is what we sort of just started calling the others little encampment there, because that's what there's apparently a difference between a teepee and a yurt.
Those are definitely yurts.
And those are yurts.
In fact, it was cool when we were down in Hawaii. There was someone on the crew who apparently surfs near Yurtville. There's a good break there, and a lot of the local Hawaiians were like freaking out, wondering what the heck this thing was. They knew that it was built for Lost, but they didn't understand how it fit into the context of the show.
I'm not sure I understand how it fits into the context of the show, but maybe you'll tell me after the podcast.
I'll tell you after the podcast. And if you watch the finale...
Are they going back to Yurtville? Are we going to see it again in the finale?
I think that's a pretty good bet.
That would suck if they did not go back there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be really frustrated.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like that frickin' season 1 finale.
When they're just looking down the hatch. And it's like...
Oh, my God.
Geez,
angry people everywhere.
Including...
I hope that people are not going to be so angry with us this year.
But, looking ahead, the finale. Here
That's
it is.
right.
What's it called, Carlton?
It's called Live Together, Die Alone.
Why is it called Live Together, Die Alone?
Well, because that's a pretty good theory.
It is. That I think
so take your hand off my knee.
Okay, if you insist. Only if you'll start breakdancing again. this is something that Jack said way back in the 5th hour of the show and in season 1, and it's sort of come back as a recurring theme, and we think is one of the unifying themes of the show, this idea that, you know, they need each other in order to survive on the island, and that sort of speaks, since a big major storyline here is that Michael sort of has gone out on his own in an effort to get his son back and basically sold out his friends. You know, it sort of plays into that, and also someone's going to be coming back who's tried to sort of live alone.
That's very true.
And he's going to be forced to come back to the island and rejoin our community.
A certain Scottish gentleman named Desmond.
That is quite possible. There has been some speculation, seeing the boat at the end of the episode in 3 minutes, that indeed that is Desmond's boat.
Right.
But we'll see. I guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see what Desmond has to say for himself, since he kind of took off without really giving us a lot of answers in episode 3, didn't he?
Well, it's not like we're going to find out what happened while he was on the island, though. I mean, in the hatch. I mean,
you don't think so?
No. Why would you even tell me that? I mean, you don't tell me anything. There's only questions on this show.
Exactly. Questions. No answers. Frustration.
It would be kind of cool to see that Kelvin guy, though.
Kelvin. Oh yeah, I mean, Kelvin.
He says he wasn't down there alone. So
figure out what the heck was up with that frickin' question mark painting. How did that came into being?
Interesting. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be quite excellent. So, shall we have a few more questions here before we go into the finale? And then after the finale, pretty much we can answer whatever questions.
Yeah, we'll tell you whatever you want to know about
the entire show.
At that point,
everything,
like,
what the island is, where the island is, what the monster is, what the numbers are,
all that stuff. Exactly. I'm really looking forward to that.
Whose daughter was Christian Shepherd referring to?
I don't know.
With the house in Australia.
That's interesting.
That stuff.
Who would that be?
Exactly.
Speaking of mysteries that we don't get the answers to, Carlton, I'd like to.
You're going to start?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is from Quiet.
You go ahead. You just go ahead and start. That's fine.
This is to.
I had a question, but you go ahead and ask yours first.
This is to Carlton the Doorman and Everybody Loves Damon by Quiet Please 69. Hey guys, 2 questions, sorta. Remember the random eyeball you chose to show in the episode about the tailies? They found the Bible and the eyeball. What is up with that eyeball? It's kind of haunting me. Is that the way the others can watch the Losties, by remote viewing using the iCam in someone who they all think is Losties but is really an other? And those flashbacks, when they are shown, is that supposed to be the character thinking about their past at that moment? Or is that purely informational for the viewer? Or perhaps something entirely different? Mucho gracias.
Wow. I was really thrown by the muchas gracias at the end.
Try not to get hung up on that and just focus on the questions, Carlton.
Well, actually, the flashbacks are from the perspective of the eyeball. Oh, yeah, you almost spit up your coffee. That was good. Look at that.
That was not the... I'm good.
Okay there, man. Good. Okay.
That is not the answer I was anticipating, but perfectly responsive in every way.
That eyeball is going to have its own flashback in season 3, and what'll be going to be really cool is we're going to just aggregate body parts in each flashback until by the last flashback you just reveal the entire person whose flashback it is.
That eyeball and Marvin Candle's prosthetic arm should have an adventure together where they go trekking through the woods.
And then there's Montan's missing arm.
Yeah,
too.
Montan is also missing an arm.
So that's another story we're dying to tell.
That
actually.
is officially my favorite line from the finale last year when Rousseau says we're about to enter dark territory, and this is where my team started to go crazy, where Montan lost his arm. So I cannot wait to meet Montan in a flashback one of these days.
Exactly.
See his glorious arm.
A homage to Wages of Fear. So here's a podcast question for you, Damon. Posted by Norwobnapets. I don't know what that. There's probably a word in there that I'm not getting. You guys rock. That's it.
Next. Great. Moving on.
I especially like Damon's laugh. Come on.
I can't force my laugh. You would have heard it when you made your eyeball flashback joke, except I was drinking coffee and I almost died.
Anyways, question.
That's not funny.
Question.
Yes.
Do you two wish that for one episode of Lost you could play another? That would be awesome.
I do wish that I could play another.
I think you would be a good Neil Frogert.
But you have to take off your shoes and kill people. pretty much, and drag them around on the ground if you want to be another.
In fact,
which is a lifelong ambition of mine.
Was it true that was you dragging the teddy bear through the jungle?
I will neither confirm nor deny that rumor, except to say that I deny it categorically.
Right. Actually, Damon was in a recent episode.
Was I?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Was.
But we shouldn't reveal.
I think that's a good tidbit. We can tell everybody that little tidbit.
Yes, in the question mark episode, when Locke reaches down to turn on the lights in the Pearl station, and he turns that little dial that's built into the chair.
It says warm and baked.
That says like warm and baked instead of off and on. That is in fact my hand, because Terry O'Quinn was busy working
on another scene,
actually acting on the show.
I was trying to direct Damon while he was doing this, and he's like, "Well, what's my motivation?" It was like,
I wanted to know what my hand was supposed to be doing. Why? And he says to turn on the lights.
And he was so tentative for the first few takes, but then finally he got one that was really definitive and turned that rheostat with.
So yes, not to break the fourth wall of the show, but that in fact is the first time that I have appeared on Lost.
Yeah, it's and more of a little behind the scenes tidbit. It's not really a breaking of the fourth wall, really. It's a sort of a production thing.
Speaking of the breaking of the fourth wall, that's a perfect segue into. We have to take it down and get serious here for a second. This is from Vava Vavoom 14.
Taking it down.
Carlton, who came up with the idea for all the different websites, i.e. Hanso, Dharma, etc.? This seems to me at least a very cool way of fueling the imagination and obtaining information, if you're willing to put the effort in. I'd just like to say a big thanks, as it is really a groundbreaking show in more ways than one.
Well, I'd like to know what the one way is first, and then we can get on to the other ways. Actually,
it was groundbreaking that time we dug a hole on the show.
Like when Saeed was digging that hole. What was that hole that Saeed was digging in that episode?
We'll never know. He was putting something in there, though.
Exactly. He's probably trying to find the other eyeball.
It's a good thing we've taken it down now.
Taken it down. All right. The truth is, we've gotten ourselves into a little bit of a hot water here, and I know we joke around a lot, but the fact is that we chose to reference the Hanso Foundation, which actually is a genuine, supposedly sort of kind of beneficial organization that's based out of Scandinavia, and we've included them in the show and in the show's mythology, and
we thought it'd be cool because they're philanthropic. Not a lot of people have heard about them. We love the name Alpha Hanso. It's a little shady and mysterious, so we just built it into the whole Dharma Initiative thing.
And it was sort of one of those things like sort of, Doctorow sort of mixes fact and fiction in some of his novels, and we thought the sort of introducing the real-life element of the Hanso Foundation into the fictional world of Lost would create a really interesting kind of combustion. And unfortunately, it turned out to be sort of more of a nuclear thermonuclear combustion.
Apparently, we have pissed them off, and we are getting all sorts of legal letters, and this guy, Hugh McIntyre, who is their communications director, has personally lobbed in several calls to Carlton and I, and
he's actually going to be apparently doing some, he's out there doing sort of a counteracting PR campaign, from what we've heard. There was actually some ads.
Good for Hugh.
Did you see that? And there were ads in the New York Times and the LA Times from the Hanso Foundation disavowing Bad Twin and certain things that were in that book. And
we're just trying to have a little fun, and they're taking it fairly seriously. So,
but it's a little bit like certain things in the Da Vinci Code. It's like we're trying to use real life things but blend them with fiction, and sometimes people get angry when you do that.
They do, and so that's really all we have to say about that, I guess. If you have a problem with the Hanso Foundation, I'm sure there's a number you can call.
Exactly. So shall we take it back to the lighter side, Damon?
Yes, back to the lighter side. Please.
Podcast question about being in the old Xerox building, posted by Stephen Hanso.
Oh, this is the lighter side. Hey, I hear there's a building that you shoot in where there was a mass killing.
Oh, never mind. Let me ask the question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Jeez Louise.
That's not the perfect segue to lighten things up.
Well, I mean, you can't just jump all the way back up to fun. You've got to sort of ramp back up.
Yeah,
and
you might as well.
What better way to ramp back up than discussing
as a segue? Let's not talk about that.
Hey, Carlton and David, does it freak you out working in that old Xerox building? Has anyone seen the ghosts of the 7 people killed back there in 1999? That place freaks me out. Thanks, Stephen Hanso.
in all seriousness, it is a tragic thing that happened at the Xerox building down in Hawaii. What we now do a lot of our shooting on the Diamond Head stage, which is where the hatch set is. But for season 1, the caves were built on a set that is in the old Xerox building, and there are a lot of the locals in Hawaii believe that the set is haunted. And in fact, there have been sort of weird cold patches there and strange noises.
But we actually did a whole ritual to sort of purge the place of ghosts before we worked there. I mean, there was a ceremony conducted for the benefit of the crew to sort of exorcise the ghosts in the building. Whether it worked or not is sort of a subject of debate.
But we were actually shooting down there recently. Carlton was directing a Mobisode promo, and one of the massive lights went out in the midst of trying to do that. So maybe that was the ghosts trying to tell you not to direct.
And then I felt something cold and clammy on the back of my neck, and then
I
realized it was Damon's.
Yes, I saw that one. No coffee drinking before you got to that one, my friend. All righty, that's good. Nice.
Okay.
Hey, Carlton.
Yo.
This is from Claire and Turnip Head. Just finished watching the question mark episode, and now I'm confused. As the psychic said to Echo that he was basically a fraud, but yet in Claire's flashback he seemed very genuine. He pestered her for months during her pregnancy and seemed quite convinced that danger surrounded her baby. He even bought her the plane ticket and insisted she must board the plane. So what's up with the psychic? Is he genuine or not? Is he somehow connected with the others? Question mark episode rocked, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you
That was
very
me
much.
talking. That's not even in the...
It's not even in the question.
No,
that's a good subject for debate. If you want to refill your coffee cup, we could discuss the merits of the two sides of that, conundrum. One, is the psychic real, and was what he was saying to Claire real? Or was the psychic a fraud who was paid money to act as though Claire's baby was special and that she was in danger, or the baby needed to be taken off someplace else, and he just did that in order to help make this adoption of the baby in Los Angeles happen? Those are two very legitimate ways to view that, aren't they?
They are. And, again, to give you guys sort of a little peek into, the behind-the-scenes machinations of the show, there was, in fact, a version of that scene shot that was much more clear in dealing with whether or not he was a fraud. But when we got into the editing room, we thought it was much more interesting to let the fans, again, sort of have that conversation themselves instead of us saying definitively which way it was or not. So sometimes those decisions happen in the room, then they go all the way to script, but ultimately the final decision gets made in the editing room because the film is all that lives.
Right. And Nick Jemisin is awesome.
He really is. He's awesome.
He's one of the few actors who's actually able to appear to be Australian.
Do you think he is Australian? I'm not sure, because on 24 this year, that same actor played like the president of Russia with an almost flawless accent.
I know.
So
He's like Meryl Streep.
Maybe I'll bump into him one day and he'll be like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like from Brooklyn, but I don't know. He's probably Australian
or Russian.
Exactly. One of the two.
I know.
Do we have time for one more question or no?
We'll do one more because if you're listening this long, you're probably ready for one more question.
We'll answer very, very.
Podcast question. How do you write? Gentlemen, I thoroughly enjoy your show. I cannot begin to imagine what it's like to sit around a table with the writers and discuss what will happen on the show, which leads to my question. Do you work with a general outline of what's going to happen for the entire season, or do you write as you go? I know many writers subscribe to one or the other camps. Thanks for considering my question.
I
think you can sing. That doesn't actually say that in there.
I'm not singing, Carlton, despite your best efforts to get me to try. We plan out the seasons one at a time, but in the context of a much larger plan. So as Carlton mentioned last week, for season 3, for example, we've been working for the past 3 weeks about what the plan is, and we put these sort of tent poles over the course of, say, in episode 7 we want to be here, and by episode 15 we want to be here. So we know sort of exactly what we're working towards. In the case of this year, even though you haven't seen the finale yet, we pretty much shot the exact finale that we talked about shooting almost a year ago.
In minicamp. I mean, it was amazing. Sometimes you get you veer off course and you get detoured, or you have to sort of move story up because you realize you don't have enough story. The estimation of how long it's going to take to tell a story changes. But this year it worked out pretty much right on the money.
And there are episodes in there where, for example, we didn't know we were going to do a Rose and Bernard episode this season.
Right.
We knew that they were going to be reunited, but since we hadn't even cast Bernard yet, at the time of, you just never know how it's going to work out. But then when we saw those actors working together, we knew what their backstory was. We said, hey, let's tell that story. And we ended up doing we did SOS. So, that kind of stuff.
Instead of the episode where we told the audience what the monster was and where the island is and what the numbers meant. We had to push that one off.
We pushed it off to season 9, in fact, where it sits waiting to get shot.
Exactly.
So that's the short answer.
So we'll be back very soon with the ultimate podcast for year 2.
Enjoy the finale. We hope that there is not as much frustration this year as last year. We're pretty proud of it, and we're proud of the challah, which carries on the fine tradition of the bagel, and
exactly
that's sort of our code word for the very ending of the show.
The last 3 minutes.
Yeah, and stick around. And for those of you who are watching American Idol instead of Lost for the first hour, it saddens us.
It does.
It really does. We can tell you who's going to win American Idol, though.
I was sorry that Chris got kicked off.
Me too. But Elliot's going to win.
Yeah, Elliot's going to win.
I mean, that's a lock.
Yeah.
I even voted for him.
Oh, my God.
All right. We could podcast
All
on
right.
that. All right, no.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
That's it for this week. However, as the guys mentioned, next week we'll bring you a special Season 2 wrap-up with Damon and Carlton. You can submit your fan questions at lost.abc.com. The session will be recorded the day after the finale airs, so get your questions in. Live Together, Die Alone airs Wednesday, May 24th from 9 to 11 p.m. only on ABC.